There comes a moment in your life when you realize that reacting is exactly what keeps you stuck. Not because you're weak, not because you don't know better, but because every reaction, every text, every explanation, every emotional spin keeps you tethered to someone who thrives on your energy. And one day, you wake up, you look in the mirror, and something inside you whispers, no more. Not loud, not angry, just steady. That whisper, that quiet decision to stop chasing, stop defending, stop proving is the beginning of your freedom. I want to tell you something that might sting a little bit before it heals you. Most of the chaos in your life right now isn't happening to you. It's happening because someone has learned exactly how to make you react. They've learned which buttons to press, which silences to break, which words to drop like landmines. And every time you respond, every time you explain, you hand them your power like currency. But the moment you stop, the moment you choose no reaction, that's the moment everything shifts. You see, reaction is their oxygen. It keeps the illusion alive that they still matter more than your peace. It convinces them they can still pull your strings. And the truth is they can't. Not unless you move, not unless you answer. When you stop engaging, you're not losing control, you're reclaiming it. Now, let's be real. Silence doesn't come easy. For people like you, empaths, fixers, peacekeepers, silence feels like failure. You were taught to talk it out, to explain, to forgive, to be the bigger person. But what if the bigger person doesn't chase? What if the stronger soul is the one who stays still? You think they'll notice when you stop reacting, and they will. At first, they'll mistake your calm for weakness. They'll assume your silence means surrender. But oh, they have no idea what's coming. Because silence, real silence, isn't the absence of noise. It's the presence of strength. When you choose not to react, you're not being passive. You're being powerful. You're stepping into a space. Most people never find the space where peace becomes your boundary. So as we begin this conversation today, I want you to take a deep breath. Not a breath to calm down, a breath to rise up. Because by the end of this, you'll understand something most people spend a lifetime missing. That not reacting doesn't mean you don't care. It means you finally care enough to stop bleeding for what drains you. You're not giving up. You're waking up. You're not walking away from the fight. You're stepping out of the ring altogether. You've been trying to win a game that only exists when you play. So today, you stop playing. This right here, right now is the turning point. The quiet revolution that begins not with a shout, but with a stillness. And that stillness, that's your comeback. That's where your peace begins. You don't chase because you're broken. You chase because you're wired to fix what feels wrong. You chase because somewhere deep down, your nervous system learned that love means work, that connection means effort, that peace must be earned. And so you try, you explain, you apologize, you reach out one more time. But let me tell you something you might not have heard before. Chasing isn't love, it's survival. When someone trains you to live on emotional crumbs, you start mistaking hunger for devotion. Every text, every scrap of attention feels like oxygen to a suffocating heart. And you start believing that if you can just say the right thing, if you can just explain it better, they'll finally see you. They'll finally value you. They'll finally stop hurting you. But they won't, because that's not how this dynamic works. Let's talk about the science for a second, because this isn't just emotional, it's neurological. When you're in a toxic or narcissistic relationship, your brain gets hooked on what psychologists call intermittent reinforcement, the unpredictable pattern of reward and punishment. One moment they're warm, the next they're cold. One day they love you, the next they ignore you. And your brain, bless its brilliant design, starts chasing the high of those good moments. Like, I don't. It confuses chaos for connection. You start asking, what did I do wrong? When the truth is, you didn't do anything wrong. You're just stuck in a chemical loop that convinces you that fixing them is the same as saving yourself. But it's not. That's why breaking free feels impossible at first. Because you're not just letting go of a person, you're letting go of an addiction. an addiction to being needed, an addiction to being the one who holds everything together, an addiction to the illusion that love can heal someone who doesn't want to be healed. You see, chasing gives you the illusion of control. If I keep trying, maybe it'll get better. If I stay calm, maybe they'll stop yelling. If I forgive again, maybe they'll finally understand. But that's not control. That's captivity. And I know it's terrifying to stop because silence feels like abandonment. Doing nothing feels wrong when you've built your identity around fixing everything. But here's the truth, my friend. The one who's always fixing will never be free. Freedom doesn't come from more effort, it comes from release. From the radical, painful, liberating decision to say, I'm done trying to convince someone who has no interest in seeing me. That's the emotional trap. It's the invisible contract that says, if I love harder, they'll change. But love doesn't fix dysfunction. Love doesn't heal manipulation. Love doesn't rewrite someone else's trauma. And this is where you begin to reclaim your energy. When you realize that walking away isn't cruelty, it's clarity. When you finally understand that your chasing is what keeps the cycle spinning. So the next time your fingers hover over the phone, ready to type that long message, ready to defend your heart again, I want you to stop. 5 seconds. Just 5 seconds. Count it out with me. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and breathe. Because in that tiny gap between impulse and action, that's where your power lives. That's the moment your peace begins to build a foundation under your feet. That's the moment you stop being a responder and start being a creator. You're not needy. You're human. But from this point forward, you're going to learn that peace isn't found in getting their attention. It's found in withdrawing yours. There's a shift that happens when you stop reacting. It's not dramatic. It's not loud. It's quiet. Like the moment a storm passes and you realize you survived it. That's what silence feels like. Survival turned into power. See, narcissists and toxic people survive on one thing, emotional energy. They feed on your reactions. They study your tone, your tears, your defenses. Every time you argue, justify, or explain, you're not winning ground. You're fueling the fire. They don't hear your words. They register your response. Your emotional reaction tells them, I still have access. And when you go silent, that access is gone. Here's the truth. Most people don't realize your silence is not invisible. To them, it's deafening. It's the one language they can't control, the one move they can't counter. Because silence, real silence, means they've lost the lever that once moved you. They don't see surrender. They see loss of power. Now, at first, they'll test you. They'll send that text, hey, just checking in. They'll drop a memory, a song, a picture, anything to stir the emotional pot. Because your silence isn't just uncomfortable for them, it's threatening. It exposes the truth they've spent their entire life hiding from. They can't control someone who no longer reacts. And this is the moment you have to stay steady. This is where emotional discipline becomes your new superpower. Silence doesn't mean you're ignoring them. It means you're prioritizing you. It's not about punishment. It's about preservation, because every time you respond, even out of guilt or kindness, you re-enter their arena. You give them permission to play the same game again. And that game only ends when you stop showing up. There's a part of your mind that will panic at first. It'll whisper, maybe I should just explain one last time. That's your old conditioning, speaking the version of you who believed peace had to be negotiated. But peace isn't a bargain. It's a boundary. And boundaries, my friend, are built in silence. When you stop explaining yourself, when you stop giving updates, when you stop defending your truth, you reclaim focus. You start seeing clearly again. You start realizing how much noise you've been living in, how much energy you've been giving away, just to prove what should have been obvious, that your feelings are valid. Now, here's the beautiful irony. When you stop reacting, you start healing. because you stop living from their chaos and start living from your clarity. You stop responding to their emotional temperature and start regulating your own. And that's when the power dynamic flips. You're no longer the one being studied, you're the one observing. This is the psychological shift. It's when you move from reaction to reflection, from survival to sovereignty. Your silence becomes your armor, your calm becomes your resistance, and your peace becomes your rebellion. So when you go silent, remember this, you're not disappearing, you're detaching. You're not giving up the fight. You're choosing not to bleed for it anymore. Because when you refuse to play the game ends. That's what silence does. It doesn't make you small. It makes you sovereign. When you go silent, the narcissist doesn't understand it. At first, they mistake it for confusion. They think you're playing hard to get, that this is another round of the game. They don't realize the game is already over because silence, real silence, unsettles them. It's the one thing they can't interpret, can't manipulate, can't twist to their advantage. See, your reactions used to be their mirror. Every word you spoke reflected back to them a sense of power. Your emotion told them, I still matter. Your tears whispered, I still care. Your anger shouted, you still have access. And now it's gone. So what happens? First comes denial. They convince themselves you're bluffing. They wait, confident that eventually you'll break the silence. They tell themselves she always comes back. Give him a few days, he'll reach out. Denial feels safe for them. It allows them to pretend the world hasn't changed. But then the waiting starts to ache. That's when provocation begins. They test the silence. They'll text something subtle, something nostalgic. Hey, remember that trip? Or something dramatic. I can't believe you'd treat me this way. Maybe they'll call from another number or post something online just to make sure you see it. Because what they want most is reaction. They don't need love. They need relevance. And when the silence holds, when you don't take the bait, something cracks. They start to feel it, the loss of control. That's when the panic spiral begins. The panic isn't about missing you. It's about missing their reflection. Without your emotional reaction, they can't see themselves anymore. They start questioning their grip, their worth, their image. They scramble for supply, new people, old flames, anyone willing to react. Because for them, emotion equals existence. Control equals identity. And now that you've removed yourself from their orbit, their world starts to wobble. They may grow angry. They might tell lies about you, twist stories, try to provoke pity from others. They'll play the victim to anyone who'll listen. But all of that, the gossip, the tantrums, the sudden kindness, isn't strength. It's collapse disguised as confidence. See, when you go silent, they lose the one thing they can't function without, your emotional participation. You were the battery powering the illusion, and now that battery's dead. Here's the truth. They don't fall apart because you left. They fall apart because your silence forces them to face themselves, and there's nothing there. Nothing solid, nothing real, just the echo of a person who spent their entire life performing for power. And that's what terrifies them. So if you've gone silent and they suddenly start reaching out more than ever, don't be fooled. That's not love returning. That's panic manifesting. It's the fear of losing the mirror that made them feel significant. And you, my friend, were that mirror. But you're not anymore. Your silence shattered the illusion. And once that illusion breaks, they can't put it back together because the only glue they ever had was your reaction. So when they spiral, let them. When they reach, don't reach back. Their panic is not your problem. Their collapse is not your calling. Because while they're unraveling, you're rebuilding. While they're searching for control, you're finding peace. And that, right there, is the power of detachment. You're not punishing them. You're freeing yourself. And the beauty is they never saw it coming because your silence didn't come with a fight. It came with peace. And peace, to someone who lives on chaos, feels like extinction. When you go silent, something powerful happens inside you. But let's be honest, it doesn't feel powerful at first. It feels strange. It feels empty. It feels like loss. That's because your nervous system has been living in fight or flight mode for far too long. You've been conditioned to respond. Every time they texted, your heart raced. Every time they withdrew, your body panicked. Every argument, every apology, every reconciliation, it wasn't just emotional, it was chemical. You were living on adrenaline. You were fueled by cortisol. You were surviving on the rush of chaos. So when the noise stops, your body doesn't know what to do with the silence. It mistakes peace for danger because chaos had become your comfort zone. That's not weakness. That's conditioning. This is the part no one talks about, the withdrawal, because silence doesn't just expose them, it exposes you. It shows you how much of your identity was built around reaction, how much of your energy was wrapped around managing someone else's moods, how much of your peace you outsourced to their behavior. And now, without them pulling the strings, your system trembles. You feel restless. You want to text. You want to check their page. You want to explain, to fix, to feel something familiar. But this right here is where your nervous system begins to reset. This is the moment your healing shifts from emotional to physical. Because your brain has to learn something new. That calm is safe. That peace doesn't mean abandonment. That silence isn't punishment, it's protection. And the way you teach your body that truth is through the pause between impulse and action, the pause between the urge to reach out and the decision not to, the pause between emotion and expression. This is where the 5-second rule becomes your anchor. When you feel the wave rising, the need to respond, to explain, to chase, you count it out. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And in that space, you breathe. You don't react. You redirect. You move. You take a walk. You stretch your body. You write the message in your notes and never send it. Because the goal isn't to suppress your emotion. The goal is to give it somewhere healthy to go. In those moments, what you're really doing is rewiring your brain. You're teaching it that you can feel discomfort without acting on it. You're proving to yourself that emotion doesn't have to become reaction. And every time you do that, you build emotional muscle. It won't feel easy at first. You'll shake, you'll doubt, you'll crave the chaos. That's how withdrawal works. But stay with it. Because on the other side of that craving is calm. And calm is the new chemistry of peace. It's your nervous system remembering what safety feels like. It's your body learning to exist without needing to fix, without needing to fight, without needing to flee. That's what happens when you go silent. You start hearing yourself again. Not the anxious voice that's begging for answers, but the steady one that's always been waiting underneath the noise, the one whispering, "You're safe now. You're home." So if your silence feels uncomfortable, don't break it. Breathe through it, because that's not emptiness you're feeling. That's your body detoxing from dysfunction. And every time you stay still when you used to react, you're reclaiming another piece of your power. You're not losing control. You're regaining it one breath, one pause, one heartbeat at a time. When you go silent, you don't just stop talking, you start transforming. But that transformation doesn't happen all at once. It happens in stages. Each one feels different. Each one demands something from you. And if you can recognize these 4 stages, you'll understand that what feels like breaking down is actually breaking free. Let's walk through them. Stage 1, shock. The first stage is disorientation. It's that strange stillness after chaos when your mind keeps looking for noise that's no longer there. You catch yourself reaching for your phone, checking if they've called, wondering if you should say something, anything. Silence feels heavy, awkward, loud, because for so long, reaction was your reflex. In this stage, your brain is confused. It equates stillness with danger because chaos used to mean connection. So the first few days, even weeks, can feel wrong. You'll think, shouldn't I be doing something? No, you're already doing something extraordinary. You're doing nothing. And that's what breaks the cycle. Stage 2, craving. Then comes the craving. This is when the silence gets under your skin. You'll start replaying old conversations. You'll imagine what you could have said differently. You'll feel the urge to fix, to text, to peek at their page, just to see how they're doing. But that's not love talking, that's withdrawal. Your brain is craving the chemical hit of unpredictability, that dopamine spike from emotional highs and lows. And when it doesn't get it, it calls it love. This is where you have to remind yourself the craving is not a command. It's a signal that you're healing, because the moment you don't feed it, the craving loses power. Every time you resist that urge, you're rewiring your nervous system to recognize calm as safety. So when you want to reach out, count it down. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Then choose peace. Because silence is not the absence of connection, it's the beginning of self-connection. Stage 3, equilibrium. Now, this stage sneaks up on you. One morning, you'll wake up and notice something different. You're not checking your phone every hour. Your body isn't buzzing with anxiety. You feel still. That's equilibrium. It's not numbness, it's balance. The highs and lows are leveling out. You're not being pulled into their storm anymore. You're standing in your own weather. This is the stage where peace starts to feel normal, where calm no longer feels like loss. You begin to understand that silence isn't cold, it's clear. It's the space where you can finally hear your own thoughts again, not theirs, echoing in your head. In this phase, self-respect returns quietly. Boundaries stop feeling like walls and start feeling like doors, ones that only open for what serves you. Stage 4, rebirth. And then there's rebirth. It doesn't arrive with fireworks. It arrives with a deep exhale, the kind that fills your lungs with relief and your soul with recognition. Rebirth is when you realize you no longer want to explain yourself. You no longer need to be understood. You no longer seek validation from the person who once thrived on your confusion. You've crossed from reaction to creation. You're not trying to fix anyone anymore. You're building yourself. Rebirth is when you look back at the person you were the one who begged, who explained, who waited, and you feel nothing but gratitude. Because that version of you didn't fail. They survived long enough for this version to exist. You stop craving their chaos because peace finally feels like home. You stop chasing closure because you realize closure isn't something they give you, it's something you create for yourself. And that, my friend, is the miracle of silence. So if you're somewhere in between these stages, confused, craving, or calm, trust the process. Because this is what evolution feels like. Messy, quiet, holy. Every minute you hold your silence, you're teaching the world a new truth. You don't need to react to prove your worth. You don't need to speak to reclaim your power. You just need to stay still long enough to remember who you are. And that remembering, that's your rebirth. Let's talk about words, because silence doesn't mean you'll never speak again. It means you've learned that words are tools, not weapons, not explanations, not desperate attempts to be understood. They're boundaries made audible. And once you understand that, every conversation changes. You no longer speak to defend. You speak to define. Now, I know how hard it is to stay calm when you're being provoked. When they twist your words, when they guilt trip you, when they suddenly show up pretending to care, every nerve in your body wants to respond, to prove you're not who they say you are, to show them the truth. But here's the thing, they already know the truth. They just need you to react so they can deny it again. That's the game. And you win it by refusing to play. So here are the scripts, the words that keep your peace intact. When they bait you with drama, you say, I'm not available for that conversation. That's it. No defending, no justifying, because your availability is your boundary. And when you say it calmly, it's more powerful than any argument you could ever make. When they guilt you with lines like, "You've changed," or "You used to care about me," you say, "You're right. I have changed." And that's all. No apology, no justification, because they're right. You have changed. You've grown. You've evolved. You've stopped mistaking guilt for love. You're no longer available for relationships that require self-betrayal. When they try to charm you back, you don't respond because charm without consistency is manipulation dressed as affection. And you've already learned that lesson. Silence here isn't cruelty, it's clarity. You're not ignoring them, you're honoring yourself. When they twist reality, you say, "That's not my experience." That line is powerful because it refuses to engage in delusion. It centers truth without debate. You're no longer fighting over what's real. You're simply stating your reality and moving on. When they play the victim, you say, "I hope you find the help you need." Not sarcasm, sincerity, because your role was never to fix them. Compassion doesn't mean carrying someone else's chaos. You can wish them well without walking back into the fire. And here's the most important script of all, the one that requires no words, your silence. Because sometimes the strongest statement you'll ever make is no statement at all. Your calm will confuse them. Your silence will expose them. And your peace will frustrate them more than your anger ever could. But remember, silence doesn't mean you don't care. It means you've finally learned how to care without sacrificing yourself. Now, I want you to notice something about all these responses. They're short, simple, final. That's because you're not seeking resolution anymore. You're enforcing reality. You've stopped trying to win arguments because you've realized the real victory is inner calm. So the next time someone tries to pull you back into the old dynamic, the accusations, the guilt, the charm, I want you to pause, count it down, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And then ask yourself, does this conversation serve my peace? If the answer is no, your response is silence. That's it, because you don't need to prove your growth. You live it now. You speak it now. And sometimes the most powerful boundary you'll ever set is the sound of your own stillness. Now that the noise is gone, you're standing in silence, but here's what no one tells you. That silence isn't empty. It's full. Full of all the energy you used to spend on chaos. You've been running an emotional marathon for years, sprinting after peace that someone else kept moving farther away. And now you've stopped running. Your mind, your heart, your nervous system, they're all standing still for the first time in forever. And that stillness, that's not boredom. That's power returning. You see, energy never disappears. It just gets redirected. And now that you've stopped feeding it into arguments, explanations, and emotional rescue missions, it's flowing back to where it always belonged you. This is what I call the reclamation. It's when you take every ounce of effort you used to pour into managing them and pour it into building you. Because healing isn't just about stopping the pain, it's about starting the creation. Let me break it down for you. Every time you choose silence over reaction, you gain energy. Every time you choose calm over chaos, you gain focus. Every time you choose peace over proving, you gain clarity. That's not just emotional growth, that's energetic compounding. You're redirecting the fuel that once burned you into the force that now builds you. So what do you do with that energy? You create structure, you create routine, you create health, you create joy, even in small doses. Because creation is how you reclaim your power. Start with something simple, a walk, a journal, a project, a goal that belongs to you. Because every act of creation tells your brain, we're safe now. And once your brain believes that, peace stops being a temporary feeling and starts becoming your default state. This is also where your identity begins to rebuild. Because for so long, your entire sense of self was a reaction to their moods, their needs, their approval, You lost yourself by constantly responding to someone else's world. But now you get to build your own. You start to rediscover what excites you, what grounds you, what makes you feel alive without the rush of drama. And that, my friend, is creation in its purest form, turning your silence into momentum. Here's the truth: reaction drains, creation restores. Reaction keeps you trapped in their story. Creation writes your own. So take that energy back. All the time you spent analyzing their texts, use it to write your goals. All the energy you used defending your worth, use it to build your confidence. All the effort you wasted waiting for change, use it to be the change. You've already done the hardest part. You stopped chasing. You stopped reacting. Now you start creating. This is where healing becomes power. Not because you're proving anything to anyone, but because you finally realize that your peace was never lost. It was just misplaced. And now you've brought it home. There's something sacred that happens after you've stopped reacting, after the chaos has faded, after you've reclaimed your energy. It's quiet, it's calm, and it feels holy because detachment, real detachment, isn't cold. It's not apathy. It's not indifference. It's liberation. You see, we spend so much of our lives trying to love people into healing, trying to fix what we didn't break, trying to hold together what was never ours to carry. And when you finally let go, truly let go, something inside you exhales for the first time. That's not giving up. That's grace. Forgiveness, detachment, silence, they're not signs of weakness. They're signs that you've stopped trying to rewrite someone else's story and started writing your own. Because here's the truth: you can't save someone who's committed to their chaos. You can only save the part of yourself that kept trying. And when you do, when you finally release the illusion that you can make them see, make them care, make them change, that's when your peace becomes untouchable. In that silence, you start to feel something bigger than yourself, a stillness that holds you, a calm that doesn't depend on anyone else's behavior. You start realizing that what you thought was abandonment was actually alignment. You weren't being rejected, you were being redirected. Redirected toward the version of yourself who doesn't beg for love, but embodies it. That's the spiritual layer of this healing. It's the knowing that peace isn't a condition. It's a state of being. It's what happens when you stop chasing external validation and start living from internal truth. And that truth sounds like this: I can love you and still walk away. I can wish you healing and still choose silence. I can release you without resentment, because forgiveness doesn't mean letting them back in. Forgiveness means letting yourself move forward. It's cutting the rope that tied you to their chaos, not for their sake, but for yours. You're not meant to live in a cycle of convincing and collapsing. You're meant to live in clarity. You're meant to live in peace. And that's the thing about detachment. Once you've tasted it, you can't go back. You no longer crave validation from people who drain you. You no longer feel guilty for protecting your energy. You no longer confuse struggle with love. Because the moment you detach, you begin to understand that peace isn't passive. It's power, the kind that radiates quietly, the kind that doesn't need permission, the kind that speaks without words. When you detach, you don't lose anything real. You simply release what was false. And that, my friend, is liberation. It's the moment you rise above their storm and realize you were never drowning. You were learning how to breathe on your own. So let this be your mantra. I release what was never mine. I forgive what I can't control. I trust what I can't see. Because when you choose detachment, you don't just find peace, you become it. You've made it through the noise, through the craving, through the silence, through the ache of letting go. And now something has shifted. You can feel it. You don't wake up scanning for messages anymore. You don't replay every word, every look, every lie. You're lighter, calmer, stronger. That's not luck. That's not coincidence. That's transformation. Because healing isn't about never feeling pain again. It's about becoming untouchable by the things that once controlled you. It's about standing so firmly in your peace that chaos can knock, but it can't enter. The truth is, you didn't just survive what happened to you, you evolved because of it. You took every wound and turned it into wisdom. You took every manipulation and turned it into mastery. You took every tear and turned it into truth. And now you see things differently. You see that what felt like rejection was redirection. You see that what looked like loss was liberation. You see that your silence wasn't emptiness, it was the sound of boundaries forming. You've stopped needing apologies that will never come. You've stopped waiting for validation that was never real. You've stopped explaining your worth to people who were never listening. And in that stillness, you found something they'll never understand: peace. But here's the thing: peace isn't fragile, it's fierce. It's the kind of calm that doesn't flinch when chaos knocks. It's the kind of quiet that doesn't need to prove itself. It's the kind of strength that smiles when provoked because it knows you can't touch me anymore. That's what being untouchable means. It doesn't mean you're invincible. It means you're grounded. It means your worth no longer depends on how someone else sees you. It means your boundaries are built from truth, not fear. It means your energy is sacred and you finally treat it that way. So from this moment on, I want you to remember something. Your silence is not weakness. It's not distance. It's not revenge. It's wisdom. It's the wisdom to know when to speak and when to walk away. It's the wisdom to know that not everything deserves your attention. It's the wisdom to know that peace isn't something you find, it's something you protect. You've stopped trying to win a game that only existed when you played. You've stepped off their chessboard, and now you're building your own kingdom. And here's the most beautiful part. They may never understand what happened. They may never realize that the quiet you gave them was the closure you gave yourself. But you will know. You'll know the exact moment it changed, the moment you decided no more. That was the moment you became untouchable. Not because you hardened, but because you healed. Not because you stopped feeling, but because you stopped needing their chaos to feel alive. This isn't the end of your story. This is the beginning of your evolution. This is where you stop chasing peace and start embodying it. This is where you stop proving your worth and start living it. This is where you finally realize that the power you were looking for in someone else, it's been inside you all along. So take a breath. Look at how far you've come. And remember this truth: the last time they messed with you wasn't the end of their control. It was the beginning of your freedom. Because when you walk away in peace, you don't lose anything. You return to everything you were always meant to be: untouchable, grounded, free,